Should we start? Hello to all of you. So it's my pleasure to really moderate this roundtable. We have 1 hour to go. We are 3 on site, but we have other persons who are offline, so 3 of them. And so basically, we will start with an introduction, and then the discussion will be on the impact of COVID on the portfolio. So we'll discuss that. And then we'll have Q&A, knowing that you have a chat for those who are online. And also, Nathalie will be with us with a mic. So I'd like to introduce myself very briefly. So my name is Alain Pujol. I'm a board member of Angels for Health, which is the largest business angel network in Europe. So we are a group of about 100 people, very hands-on. We invest in early stage, and then we have on the round table other people who can invest with us, or most of them, later on. So Antoine, I'd like to give you the mic. So can you introduce yourself? You are the head of Sofinnova.
I'm a managing partner at Sofinnova. Sofinnova is a Paris-based venture capital firm. We have about 2 billion euros under management. And we have, traditionally, we were investing in early stage. Now, in fact, we are investing across the value chain from incredibly early incubation, even company creation, to the later stages. We have funds and teams dedicated to each of this work around the value chain. We're about 47 people, including venture partners. We have, of course, Paris is our headquarters, but we have an office in London and one in Milan. An older firm by virtue of the fact that we were set up in the early 70s, so almost 50 years old, and still going. So today, all we do is in the life sciences. This is mostly healthcare, even though we also have a team doing industrial biotech dedicated to sustainability. But the bulk of the money is invested in healthcare across biopharma and medical device, mostly in therapeutics, meaning drugs or device to treat patients. I'll stop here for the moment.
Thank you. Marc, so you are the fund manager at Financière Aarbevel. Would you like to introduce you?
Yes, thank you. So Financière Aarbevel is an independent boutique based in Paris. So we have about 1.8 billion assets under management. We have 3 activities. The first is managing UCITS, meaning that we buy and sell shares on the stock market, mostly in France and in Europe, on behalf of our clients, who are like institutional clients. Our largest clients is the Norway Sovereign Fund. And we also have a series of individuals. On top of that, we have developed over the last 3-4 years a private banking activity, which is amounting now to 500 million. And most recently, we have started 2 vehicles dedicated to private investment, which is brand new for us. It has been the most difficult thing I've ever done to raise a first fund in the life science industry for private equity. So we raised a 40 million euro fund that's been up and running for about 2 years now. We have made 8 investments. And on top of that, we just recently started the 70 million euro private debt fund for the first closing. So probably we'll go beyond 100 million euro. And private investment is critical to us because it's a diversification for Financière Aarbevel, but it's also very trendy for many of our clients, both institutional and individuals.
Thank you, Marc. And now we go to more technical side. So we have online, I hope. I see them on the screen. We have Camille Leca, who is the head of listing in France at Euronext. Camille, do you hear us?
Yes, I do. Do you hear me?
And we hear you. So perfect. Okay, up to you. Could you introduce yourself, Camille?
Sure. I manage the IPO and listed companies business for Euronext. Euronext is a big stock exchange in Europe. We basically run the financial markets in France, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Portugal, in Norway, and we also have offices in Italy, Spain, Germany, and Switzerland. So out of the 1,500 listed companies that we have, more than 110 are life sciences companies. They account for pretty much 35 billion euros market capitalization. So it's quite an important segment for us.
Thank you. And we have a little bit far away from here, Nissim Darwish with a partner at OrbiMed. You are right now in Tel Aviv, Nissim. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Or including
Can you hear
the
us, Nissim? We cannot hear you very well. Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes or no?
You.
Raise your hand if yes.
Yes.
Okay, you can
I
hear
can hear
us.
you.
Apparently. We cannot hear you very
I
well.
Can hear you.
Okay, so maybe we switch. Can the help desk help us? No? I hope everything would be all right, but okay. So maybe we switch to Philippe, Philippe Montaigne, who is partner at Fund Plus. Can you hear us, Philippe?
Hope you hear me as well.
We can hear you.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you for inviting me. So I'm a partner of Fund Plus, which is a Belgian-based fund. We are very new. When I heard Sofinnova 50 years old, we are 5 years old only. We are a bit more than 200 million euros in asset management, pure VC in health tech, mainly in therapeutic avenues. We also have one specificity is that we are an evergreen fund. We try to have a social impact on top of the financial return on investment. We have 16 companies so far in the portfolio. Some of them are in Belgium, which is our local environment, but others are in Europe in general. We don't invest initially in US, but we have already 2 companies listed on the NASDAQ, so we progressively become American via some of our portfolio companies as well. And I would be happy to tell you more about our fund a bit later when it comes to more specific questions on the COVID-19.
Excellent. Thank you, Philippe. We try to go back to Tel Aviv. Do you hear us, Nissim? Again, can you talk to us?
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
We could say yes, but...
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please introduce yourself, Nissim.
Okay. Within the OrbiMed, we are a global healthcare fund manager. We have different funds, about $1 billion management, invest in all spectrum, medtech, and service healthcare.
Okay, thank you. Were you able to understand fully, Nissim, or not really? Yeah, it's... You should probably take your mic.
I'll try.
I said it's a bit patchy, Nissim, but I don't know if you can...
Probably you can use a phone.
It'd be better with...
yeah,
that might be better.
Please.
Better?
Can you say it again, what your introduction we test? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'll try it. So Nissim Darwish.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, let's go.
Anyway, so we will try again, and I'm sure that the hotline will run properly, and that you will find a solution to have Nissim fully with us. Okay, so we will discuss today the impact of the COVID-19 on financing opportunities and risks. So basically, we will start some months ago, 6 months, really, beginning of March. And so when this unexpected story began, to ask really, to our panelists, how did you manage your portfolio, and how did you start 6 months ago? So we can really start with Antoine again.
Sure.
Tell us, Antoine, March 2020, how did you listened and you heard that something will happen, so what did you do?
Well, it was not sort of an overnight news. We thought that we were looking at Asia and thinking, oh, the poor guys, you know, this is happening in Asia, and then we realized this was coming. I was actually planning a trip to Asia and was supposed to go, and then our kids told us, don't go to Asia, no, don't go to Asia. So we decided to cancel that, and instead I went for a weekend in Italy, which ended up being the the center, not in Bergamo, but not far. So, you know, all of us have managed this in, you know, with sort of not that much visibility. But as a business, the incredible thing is that this period has been incredibly prolific. And that's the schizophrenic thing about this period, is that healthcare has been incredibly important, and therefore our activities has been completely running remotely with the whole firm behind their desk at home. Basically, we have operated in you know, in total efficiency, I should say, made I think 11 new deals between 1st of March and today, which is by any period, even outside of COVID, a very good run for a firm that's looking at new investments. And not talking about refinancing, and we had dozens of companies that managed to close operations. We also had some of the biggest, in fact, the potential biggest exit of our history, for the 8 years history, was done during COVID. We just heard my partner Graziano talking about the sale of Corvidia to Novo Nordisk. It's a massive deal for us, a fund returner for Sofinnova. And it happened during COVID. So it really is, so I talk about schizophrenic. At the same time, you can see what's happening to the industry, to the economy, generally speaking, and you wish you were not, you know, you wish you're so happy to be in healthcare, basically, because if you're in the travel industry or in so many other industries that are suffering, healthcare demonstrated its importance in a way during this period, and I think our activity, both on the investing and divesting front, just is a surrogate marker in a way of the fact that healthcare is at the top of the pyramid of needs, and will remain there for you know, for a long time.
Thank you, Antoine. Mark, can you also comment? So 6 months before us, so we are in March. How did you react, and what did you do first?
We didn't have time actually to consider the global situation, because we were an investor, shareholder in a company called NG Biotech that has developed a coronavirus test that happened to be extremely efficient. And so we, my partner was in the room, Louis Gesselin, and myself, dedicated ourselves, as well as the whole board of directors, for a period of 3 to 4 months as full-time employees of the company to support the management. It was a tiny company based in Rennes, not in Rennes, actually in Guipry, 30 kilometers away or 40 kilometers away from Rennes, 30 employees. And from one day to another, they had to face an incredible demand. And so we helped the company building a 50 million annual test capacity, production capacity, which is up and running now. We helped the company get a bank financing organization with a French public bank and also local banks, up to 20 million euros. Then the company jumped from 30 employees to 150 in no time, and jumped from 3 million euros sales to 30 million euros sales. So that was an incredible time. Actually, we worked like 24-hour, 7 days a week. It was it was an absolutely great period. I'm sorry to say that, because a lot of people were desperate, but we're so happy to do that. In parallel, of course, we had companies. We have 8 companies in this private equity portfolio. So some companies experienced difficulties. Typically, a company involved in oncology had to pretty much stop the clinical trials, which is weird because those people are suffering from metastasis in brain, you know. So their life expectation is very short, and they didn't come to the hospital, whether for the clinical trial itself or for the follow-up visit. And that's terrible. So it's very balanced. At personal level, Louis and I were super enthusiastic and fully dedicated to supporting this company and the management to make it a success. And in parallel, we had to experience some strong difficulties for some of our portfolio companies.
Thank you, Mark. If we go to Israel, or actually your portfolio, Nissim, so you are investing across the world, so probably you will share with us a more global view. Can you share that with us? Do you hear me, Nissim?
Yeah, I can.
Hear Nissim. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. So for us, I would say, we divided into two. I think some of our portfolio company have been doing great during the COVID-19. Some of the companies, healthcare IT, we saw a big booming for healthcare IT and services within the healthcare IT. On the biotech side, some of the company did face some delay in their clinical trial and in their program. At the same time, many of our have been able to go public, raise follow-on investment, and have done secondary, also on the NASDAQ and other. For us, I would say, it was a kind of a mixed bag. Some of the companies being able to raise more money and develop forward. On the other one, when it goes to clinical development, some of the company really suffered in terms of the development side. But I would say the following: I think the market are still ways in US and in Europe are still very strong, and it's a good sign for the life science industry in general.
Thank you, Nissim. So, Philippe, what about you concerning your portfolio?
Yeah, I think I can join certainly what Antoine and Nissim said, because we also had a sort of, I like the schizophrenic expression that Antoine used. Actually, it was also a bit schizophrenic on our side. Of course, there were difficulties in the portfolio, and that was the first reaction in March. We thought, oh my God, it will be tough, it will be challenging. And indeed, in some of our portfolio companies, they struggled a little bit with the clinical studies, as Nissim said. We also have preclinical activities that were delayed, and then some of them were struggling in a fundraising, because of course it was difficult, especially during March to June, to meet with the funds and continue with fundraising activities. But on the other side, many of our portfolio companies have been more active, some of them with COVID-19 projects that were added to the portfolio. And we at FundPlus have been extremely active with evaluating COVID-19 projects, doing new investments. In just over the summer, we invested in one immuno-oncology company, in a medtech company, diabetes, and we created a company for COVID-19 immunotherapy. So all that during the summer, plus we had one company, a Belgian company, going on the NASDAQ for an IPO, raising $125 million. And this company has a market cap now around $1 billion, while it is still in phase 1, phase 2 development. So it shows that indeed there is a lot of money available, a lot of money to raise, and a lot of activities. And at the end, it turned out that we have been extremely active and extremely busy during all this period.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. And let's switch to, we discussed IPO, but to the listed company, Camille. What can you say about that?
Well, as you know, stock markets were heavily impacted by the crisis. We reached record levels of volatility and severe stock price valuations. But two two segments and two sectors benefited actually from the crisis. The first one is no surprise, the digital industry, and the second one, and I agree with what has been said before, is life sciences. Just to share a few indicators with you. For example, if you look at the variation of stock prices, in the first semester, life sciences companies listed in Euronext increased their performance by 52% in average. If you compare that to the other stocks being listed in our countries, we are minus 20%. So it's a huge difference. Obviously, out of those 110 companies active in the life sciences industry, then we believe that 19 were active in COVID-related activities. And when it comes to them, the stock price variation is even bigger. I think Novacite took a plus 2,500% over the period. We all understand why. The second performance indicator of the industry is liquidity. If you look at 2020 versus 2019 on the life sciences industry, the liquidity level has increased by roughly 120% in Euronext markets, which is huge, and it's again a sign of investor appetite for this stock. The third indicator is the pool of investors. So we have been looking and following this KPI very closely, and we believe that in the first semester, we won more than 120 new institutional investors in our markets. And what's interesting is that they are mostly European, an average 50%, and only 30% US, while normally on Euronext market, you would have more than 56% of US investors. So you could see that this trend raised more local investor appetite than global investor appetite. And maybe the last indicator, so my previous comments were very much on the private equity capital increases, but when it comes to the stock market, it's the same. Around 1.4 billion euros were raised since COVID by the already listed companies, and we have some IPOs going on as well. 2 weeks ago, we had a very nice IPO in Belgium of a company called Nyxoah. It's a company that is active in sleep apnea, and they raised 80 million. And the book, so the way we say that investor appetite is measured, was covered in only a few days. So there is strong momentum for life sciences companies all across the world these days, and many companies have understood it and are working on IPO right now.
Impressive view. So thank you for your feedback. And again, I'd like also to share with you something that EIT Health put in place. And we, Angels for Health, were deeply involved in that. And this was really for startups who will probably not be able to close the financing round. So say Series A or Series B, and within the next 6 to 12 months. So EIT Health put in place a rescue instrument, and Jan-Philippe Beck shared that right at the beginning of this conference. So basically, the goal was to really do some bridge financing, so helping startups to leave during 12 months till really the next round is happening. 11 startups. At the end of the day, let me show try to find my figures. So that basically there was a call that was opened in March, and 121 startups across Europe just filed this for this really bridge financing. And 62 basically were reviewed because basically the targets were relatively strict. And among them, so 60% were in medtech, 27% in digital health, and 13% only in biotech. So we mentioned biotech as well before. And at the end of the day, 11 startups were really granted some 500K to give them the opportunity to leave till the next financing round. And so we are quite happy to help EIT Health to organize that. And basically that was also the first thing that EIT Health plays a role of investors, direct investors, because they just filed, it was not only a grant, it was something that could really be transformed into options to really buy shares. So that was really the first initiative from EIT Health to do that, and now they are continuing also with the different instruments. So that's basically the what we can say. Maybe in the room we have other people who have different feeling about the COVID, because by the way, it was quite positive.
Yeah, I mean, you were just talking about EIT Health. But
Yes.
It's fair. We invest across Europe and the US, but certainly if you look at the French situation, we were very much helped by the state. We need to recognize that, because all our companies who were closing rounds and who indeed could see that it was going to be problematic for them to at least in the timing, did obtain, in general, they file and obtain either PGE, the French loan guaranteed by the state, or French Tech Bridge, which has been put in place by BPI. So I have to say, we really felt like, and our companies felt supported. We had to put, of course, the money in general, the French Tech Bridge. You need to have the equity holders putting up, their part of the money, but the other 50% was coming guaranteed by the state or as French Tech Bridge. So that was, I'm not sure very many other nations in Europe or the US that have the same sort of very clear support. There was the same in the US, but it was more complicated to get, in my view, because we have the US companies in our portfolio, and found it more difficult to access. So that was very helpful in the short term.
Thanks to the famous BPI, which is well known across Europe, and everyone say, wow, what is BPI? Because BPI is doing a lot of things for the French companies. What about you, Philippe, in Belgium? I mean, you have a large portfolio across Europe, but you are also focused on Belgian companies from time to time. What can you say about the Belgian support for startups?
Yeah, no, very similar situation. Well, first, in general, there is a good ecosystem in Belgium, and I had already the opportunity to present that to France Biotech, for instance. But here, regarding the COVID situation, exactly as Antoine said, we observe that in different countries, and whether it's in France, Belgium, Germany, Spain, where we operate, for many of our portfolio companies, we have signed letters of commitment to show our support as present investors, so that they can use that vis-a-vis the banks and the loans that are guaranteed by the states in different countries in the COVID context. So we are signing several letters of commitments so that they can have access to that to this support. Usually, they need the system requires to see some commitment from the present investors, and it's very general and seems to work very well in different European countries.
Thank you, Philippe. And what about you, Nissim, concerning your companies and the support you got maybe from Israel or from other countries' governments or bodies?
For our company, we didn't look for support from them. So either the Israeli company or the US company, we didn't need to go to the government for it. So most of the money, we've been able to raise other VC and other investment vehicles, but we didn't ask for the government help in any one of our companies.
Thank you, Nissim. So,
if I may add to that, sorry,
of course.
Alain, what I want to explain is that when I was mentioning this commitment from existing investors so that some of our portfolio companies can have access to those sort of loans, what is interesting is when your Series B or Series C or whatever, which was coming, is just delayed because of the COVID situation. And that's where I think that's the best situation where you can benefit from this support, is that you have some delay because obviously the companies couldn't raise the money, couldn't do the roadshow as planned. And so during that delay, at least you benefit from a loan, provided there is some commitment from the existing investors. So that's the experience I'm living.
Okay, thank you. So now, your view was quite impressive, this sort of schizophrenia, so this schizophrenic view on a very active, very busy, all of you. And now let's move on to your scenario for the sector, the healthcare sector. What do you see happening in the coming months or so?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but we're trying to at least try and predict what's going to happen in the next few months. When Camille was talking about the public markets, I mean, one thing which was quite amazing is not just the fact that so many companies went public, raised money particularly on NASDAQ, but also as Camille said, the example of Nyxoah, finding a lot of investors even on European markets. But it's the way that they raise the money, because the normal IPO roadshow takes 3 weeks. You go, East Coast, West Coast, maybe Europe, maybe not, and that takes a while. And in the US, certainly in our companies that went public, the IPOs were 4 days roadshow, purely remote. I mean, purely on Zoom. And I didn't think this was going to be possible. So I think I'm an optimist. I'm trying to project what's going to happen even when we have, whenever that is, solve the situation, a vaccine, and let's say project ourselves a year from now. I think things will have changed even to the better, including in how things are done. So it is possible today to get investors to be excited about a company without necessarily meeting it in person. Just Zoom has become so, Zoom, WebEx, we don't have a share in any particular company, but whatever the medium, the video conferencing allows people to actually, well, they will make meetings and they will actually disburse cash out of this 30 million presentation they've had in a roadshow, which I was stunned about. So I think that's here to stay, and we should think about how we're going to live in this post-COVID period. I think that's a plus that we will retain. We'll probably travel less for sure. I haven't taken a flight or a train since March 1st, and I think everyone will travel less, but will be more efficient in the way that they operate. One thing, so we can fund our companies, on Zoom, WebEx, and the like. The question is, will the investors be able to fund themselves? Which is something that is not trivial. I think fundraising for the private equity, generally speaking, or the venture industry, we were sort of in a suspended situation. Some people, of course, are in fundraising now, but people are slow. The people who invest in the markets are used to a momentum and speed. The institutional shareholders who invest in funds, it's not exactly the same type. So how will this pan out, and will the next generation be delayed in their fundraising, and will they be able to get the money from people they have never met in person? If you have relationships, there are people that we have as investors, and also people that we have pitched as investors for fun and fun and fun. So people that know my face because I went to bug them for the last 10, 15 years. And maybe this time they will work. But if you have never met someone, if you're an institution, a pension fund, an insurance company, I think it's going to be slightly more difficult. So that is what I'd like to, everyone is concentrating on that, because we can only invest the funds that we have. And when we went out of that cycle. So that's going to be interesting in the next period.
Thank you. Mark, you were telling me that you are raising funds right now. So how do you see things?
No, we're contemplating the opportunity to do so, but we have not finished.
We
have not finished investing.
Thank you, Mark, for really.
We have not finished investing the first fund. So okay. No, that's a key question that was raised by Antoine. Is will we be able to attract new LPs in the fund number 2 for Arbevel? Without meeting them in person. So I don't know, we'll see. What is weird is when you look at companies I've invested in, whether at personal level or professional level, some companies are very flexible and they're adapted themselves very rapidly. And some companies even sign deals very rapidly during this period without any physical presence. And other ones are really having difficulties with that. Like typically companies, some CROs are doing a fantastic job. I have in mind a company based in the French Alps called Transcure. the sales are growing up very rapidly now, and some other companies are struggling because they generally generated the new contacts at bio or that kind of events, and they cannot do that by just Zoom or whatever. And so it's probably a question of people, just people, but I don't know. And then what is for sure that what we observe, at least for the French market, is that some institutional and generalist investors are now incepting some dedicated healthcare fund out of the blue. They're inventing themselves as specialists. That's a new trend. Some of them are probably trying to take advantage of a beautiful initiative that has been launched by the government, which is the TB initiative, meaning that for large institutional investors, the government offered the opportunity to put off the balance sheet the money that they would invest in some funds for the tech industry or the health tech industry and so on. And apparently what they're doing is that they committed themselves up to 6.5 billion euros for France only, which is great. But apparently they're trying to just taking advantage of this by incepting their own funds and putting the money into those funds. So we'll see, because we have been selected for the first round, and we're trying to establish a dialogue with the French government so that we can go after the genuine initial initiative, which was great. But that's a general trend. I guess that everybody understood how important was health was for every one of us. And I think that for the long term, it will change our vision, at least for France, because if you compare what happened at private equity level over the last 4 or 5 years in the tech industry, people have invested tons of money, and that's very virtuous in my views. But we're still a poor parent, as we say in France, of this incredible scenario which is occurring. Maybe this crisis will be a good opportunity for us to come back on the front of the stage and be more finance and attract more institutional investors. We'll see, hopefully.
Okay, so what are your views in Israel, Nissim? Oh, I mean, for your LPs raising money again. What do you think?
I think it won't be easy. I mean, as just so most of the relationship that we develop is with US and European help. So when you cannot travel, I think it will be challenging to raise a new fund. Hopefully, COVID will be over soon, and then we'll semi-normal life. We'll be able to travel again and visit our LPs. I think that's the idea. On that, I agree, with the comment from my other colleagues on the panel that actually there is more and more awareness in life science industry, into the biotech of new drugs. So I think what we'll see money coming into this, at least in the years. So in one way, to raise money, but I think the way available to the right group, VC fund invest in life science.
Okay, thank you, Nissim. And you, Philippe, how do you see things for raising money again, new fund, and your relationship with LPs?
Yeah. So there is one thing which the good news for us is that we are an evergreen fund, so we don't need to create a new fund. We can continue to build the present fund. We haven't been in fundraising mode for a while. We still have money available to invest, which is another good news. But we also see the fundraising exercise as a long-term one, and a little bit like others said, we need to continue to have good relationship with our present LPs and new potential investors. So we are building that network over time, and it's something that we do on the long term. So we hopefully should be ready by the time we need to raise money again. And then maybe I can say there is another specificity. I don't know if the others observe that, but there is more and more interest by Chinese investors for what we do in Europe. I don't know if this is a topic that you want to talk about, but this is, and even now during the COVID situation,
Touchy topic.
the fact that we work remotely is of course helping, and that everybody is used to work remotely is helping. Also with China, it seems that because of their difficulties or lower appetite for the US, they definitely are interested by Europe, and we see more and more of Chinese investors interested by what we do in our portfolio companies.
I think that this is an excellent link with the next question concerning the US and China. What do you think, Antoine, in terms of attracting investors in Europe? Is it the right time to invest in Europe startups?
Well, I absolutely, I think Europe honestly is looking good. We're all looking very good compared to the US and China as a territory. You know, the comparative advantage of Europe with its quirkiness, and yes, Europe is complicated, and you investing from, you know, Denmark, Germany, UK, which is in the European continent, let's put it this way, Switzerland, France, is very quirky, but Europe looking good. I mean, just in COVID crisis, the healthcare systems in Europe, which were, you know, by many were described as loss-making, whatever. There was never, people were never describing our healthcare systems in Europe as in a very positive way, outside of the fact that our doctors are excellent. Today, it is something that has been providing support to our people. And you know, if you have COVID and you, whatever your social status, you may be a hobo in the street, you will be brought to hospital and treated. And this is not the case of very many countries, certainly not in the US. So I think Europe, from that perspective, the social support in Europe in a situation of crisis is, I think, puts us in a very good light. We all know that you know, innovation level is outstanding. So now, if we have the capital that supports the new companies, I think Europe, rightfully so, is looking particularly well. Not just for Chinese, the US also are looking. The US investors are looking into Europe and find this a particularly attractive period right now. So I would say we have everything aligned really to do incredibly well if we just get to it and have the stamina to do the job that needs to be done to bring our companies forward. So yes, I think it's a good place. The Chinese, you know, CFIUS in the US means that it's very difficult right now for them to consider investing in the US, or it's more complicated, let's say. And it's not just for Chinese, by the way, it's for everybody that is not American. We have to file CFIUS, and every European investor has to consider CFIUS filing, because if you don't do CFIUS filing and you are seen to be, or you are found to be a CFIUS investment, then you may lose all the money you've put into this company. So for that reason, investors like the Chinese are looking into Europe. They like Europe, and you know, this moment is one. Now, you know, I'd love to be in a position where we don't have to choose one camp, you know, and welcome everyone to invest in our companies, because we, you know, I think diversity is always a great thing, whatever, in whichever field. So, including in the nationalities of the investors that are coming in, provided that they're following the same rules. So, as far as I'm concerned, we welcome from both LPs as well as direct investors in our companies, people coming from many different countries. I think that makes our portfolio companies much better, and I think as an institution that gets money from third parties, it's also great to have people coming from you know, all over the world.
Excellent. Camille, would you like to comment on that as well? So money coming from the US or from China?
Yeah, well, I fully agree. We have very great engineers and technologies in Europe, and foreign investors are very much aware of that. And valuations are lower in Europe than they can be in the US these days. So it's not surprising 56% of shares of European listed licensed companies are being held by US investors. So I think this is pretty straightforward. When it comes to China, it's rising, slowly but rising. So I think we can expect to have a rapid growth of Chinese shareholders in European life science companies in the years to come. I think they have started with the PE industry and now they're getting to the market. So it's also very interesting and nice to follow. So what we tend to say to companies is that it's usually a good move to get started, to get listed in Europe, because it's not because you're in Europe then you wouldn't attract international investors, and you're bigger in Europe than you would be, for instance, in the US or in China. And then when you're very visible and you have a lot of international investors active on your stock, you can always do a list somewhere else. But it's a good strategy because you are very much exposed, in terms of funding and marketing.
Thank you. Mark, a comment on the investors coming from outside of Europe?
Yeah, what we observed over the last 4 or 5 years, at least on the public publicly listed companies, I have in the back of my mind companies like Fornex, typically. Okay. They've been able to attract some Chinese investors. More recently, a company like Acticor has been able also to attract, which is a private company in this case. Still for as far as we're concerned at Arbevel, and we had series and still currently have some discussions with some US industrial players or financial players. What they like is to get first a local deal for China and get the exclusivity for China for a very limited amount of money. So this is not necessarily something that is that makes sense to us. In particular, when we intend to sell our portfolio companies, it can hamper some of the potential of the company, assuming that big names, they want to get the global deal, and they don't want to have like a regional deal, just the US and Europe. They want to have everything. So for the moment, we're rejecting that. So I have a very specific example of a company which is in the medtech industry. I've been approached by some Chinese investors working on behalf of a large industrial group, and they wanted to have a deal just for China. And we rejected the offer. We offered them to come into the, let's say, the bidding process, which is ongoing, but the amount of money is too high for them. So we are in the 200-300 million euros magnitude, and they wanted to spend like 40 million euros maximum. Okay. So I would say yes, but for the moment, as far as I'm concerned, I don't see that. And then going for raising capital or finding LPs in China, so we're too tiny to do that. Sofinnova can do that for sure. We cannot.
Well, maybe just, if I may just add to you, because we had, during COVID, this example of one of our portfolio companies actually happens to be in Israel. It's a device company, cardiovascular device company, that did a deal with a local Chinese company, which is a 4 billion Hong Kong listed company, which is the leader in that space, which is the valve space. So this is as good as a big corporate in the US almost, yeah. And this is a company that was nobody 7 years ago. So and those deals, I think, and even the big corporates recognize that China is not easy for them to come in. So they don't necessarily. In fact, we checked with some of our corporates that we would like to buy the company, and they didn't have a problem with the fact that we were setting off the China rights, as long as we did this with a company that actually was a very good quality company that could actually take the product all the way to market. We benefit from them, and if anyone acquires that portfolio company, they will also benefit from these guys. But I think, like in every country, I think if you find a partner, particularly probably for China, you need to find the right partner. And it's not because they're providing money, but if they are the right partner, then you can deal with them.
Thank you for this input. Nissim, would you like to comment also on the opportunity to invest more in Europe? We had the experience, we discussed this afternoon the quality of the startups across Europe. Is that something that you share? You want to increase or to develop your portfolio of European startups?
Yeah, so OrbiMed active in Europe, and I think will be more active in Europe in the coming years. So our offices here, we We actually were into the European biotech companies. I think in the last few years, we have done more than 3 or 4 deals in Europe. So I assume you know the quality of the science, and I mean, it's amazing. For us, we'll go where there is opportunity, and I think more and more opportunity in Europe in terms of biotech and medtech. So yes, definitely, we are looking to do more and more deals in Europe in the coming years.
Thank you, Nissim. So now we could really hand over to the public, to questions and answers. Probably we have, is Natalie with us? She left. So
Ran away.
you ask questions in the chat, no way to have answers. But in the room, do you have questions? I can put my mask and go with a mic. Questions and answers. The good news is that we have a very active forum, so I'm sure that we have still 10 minutes, so probably we have time to really develop further and really discuss Europe, discuss. Antoine, you were also saying that providing that the investors follow the same rules, that's okay. Will it be the case in China?
Well, there's a ton of very credible actors in China, absolutely. Our experience is, that they are very thorough. Some of them have been either investors in funds who have been investors in funds across private equity that are now going through venture. So these people are very well known and professionals. So I mean, it's always the same. It's like when you go into a territory you don't know, go with, buy or make sure you go and see people that are well known and you can check. So it's difficult. I mean, having a sweeping statement about positive or negative is wrong. And my personal experience, because we have investors from China, is that they are.
And how do you find them? You
Well,
have been there many times. You
yeah.
have local contacts.
No,
we've
we've traveled.
you,
We have 2 Chinese nationals in our firm. They're in the room, by the way, and incredible being able to be with them in meetings. And of course, all these people speak perfect English, but being able to understand the culture and sort of decode what you're being told, which may not be exactly what you as a Westerner see, is essential. But I would say, like in every situation, these are relationships, and you need to cultivate them over years. And you may fear them, they fear you, and the unknown you fear. So it's a question about how do you get to know each other, and if it's not a quick thing. So that's the relationship with LPs, with investors in general. That's the case. But they are incredibly professional and will just do diligence like no other firm in the US or other institutions in Europe. So just give them a chance and see what they do. We're pretty impressed.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we have a question.
I take it. We discuss about China, but I think we have a US presidential election in 1 month. The topic is impact of the COVID-19. So we have Mr. Trump that just announced to be COVID-19 positive. So what do you think about what could be the impact, different scenario regarding the US election, US market for us and healthcare industry? That's the priority. That's the largest market. So what could be the impact? We know that at every election we have this pricing pressure, this discussion about pricing. Today, because of the COVID-19, I think the politicians were a bit more low profile on this, but for sure they will come back. So sorry to be a bit more not negative and challenging, but what's your view? We have Nissim from US, Belgium, Paris, so floor is yours.
Well, normally in a normal period, which is not the case now, in an election year in the US, you'd never have any companies going public from the month of May or June. June is sort of the cutoff. And look at this year. So again, it's not because I'm the optimist, but clearly something has happened to healthcare. People have realized that healthcare is hugely important. And I heard our president this morning. I also heard him just a couple of weeks ago when he was announcing French tech initiatives, and he said, of course, that the digital industry has been riding the wave of COVID in a way. He said, COVID loves digital. And my thinking is, yeah, COVID may love digital, but COVID hates biotech because biotech is going to kill COVID. If we are out of COVID period a year from now, it's thanks to biotech. You know, the vaccine is the epitome of biotech. So I think the reason why we should be optimistic despite the presidential election and all the unknowns we have in front of us is that the field in which we are is the field that's going to resolve the problem. Maybe not each and every one of us, but we have companies in the COVID field, and we can see that COVID is going to be gone because biotech will kill it. So that's just simple view should allow us, you know, to look beyond this next 12 months and be very positive for our sector. So that's why, despite all this unknown, despite US elections, yes, maybe there will be a crash post-election, whatever happens, but you know, healthcare is there to stay, and I think there will be so much more interest once we have demonstrated that we were a key element of solving that crisis, not just Amazon and the digital world.
And on top of that, probably there will still be QE for quite a long time because we're anticipating that there will be a further crisis, maybe in 1 year, 2 years from now on. Because some companies will down the road lay off people and so on. So I'm pretty sure that QE will keep going for a few months, years probably. So it's also very unfortunately positive for us because they will still have money on the market. And as the valuation on the public markets are very, very high currently, even though the financial, or let's say the economic environment is not that great, then this money will probably go to private equity, which is great for us as well. So that's, let's say, on a more global and financial point of view. I'm not sure that the re-election of Trump or the election of Biden would change anything.
Okay, before closing this panel, we'd like Camille to really share with us some information or some advice or takeaway for us, for all participants.
Wow, that's a big responsibility. No, well, you heard me before. In the stock market, we talk about IPO windows. The IPO window is open at this moment. So if you're ready, or if you be with companies in your portfolio that are mature enough to go to the stock market now, and 2021 can be the time. And if this is not the case yet, you should get ready for the next IPO window to come. And we have launched 5 years ago at Euronext a program called TechShare. TechShare is a program that we run in 10 different European countries. And it's basically a 6-month training program for entrepreneurs that would like to understand what it means to get public and how to get prepared for it. So no commitment, but at least you understand what it means and how to get in shape for it. So we are closing the 6th edition recruitment at the end of October. So do not hesitate to reach out to me or any of my colleagues if you want to be part of it.
Thank you, Camille. Nissim, some words, some takeaways for us.
So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think just to our industry in the coming year. I mean, either it will be from the election of Trump or Biden. I think we'll see some pressure on price spending on the healthcare industry, but I'm still optimistic. I still think that the science and the researcher development will drive this industry forward.
Thank you, Nissim. And Philippe?
Yeah, I'm also optimistic for sure on the longer term. We don't know about the short term, but certainly mid to longer term, yes, I'm also optimistic. And I think one emerging field or category of companies are pandemic preparedness companies. We have built one COVID-19 project or one company around the COVID-19 project, but what is important is to make it a pandemic preparedness company. We are evaluating more projects like that. So you will see more and more, I think. And also the economic world is looking at us, at the healthcare system and the biotech world in particular, as others said before. So I think we have all reasons to continue to be optimistic, but we will have to work hard.
Thank you, Philippe. And it's now time to close this panel. So on behalf of all the participants here in the room or offline, online, I would like to thank very warmly our panelists. So thank you. And so you will hear on value creation through smart partnerships, biotech and pharma perspectives in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right.